Hi, Bewitches. Welcome to Bewitched Banter, the podcast where two best friends talk about things that are spooky, spiritual, paranormal, and often test each other's beliefs. Today, we are testing Amy's skepticism as we have a very special guest, Tina Miller, discussing numerology. So without further ado, please welcome our very special guest and numerologist, Tina Miller. And today we are covering numerology with our very special guest, Tina Miller, who has done more than 3,500 readings for folks in the past all over the world. Is that right, Tina?
Yeah, I mean, not all over the world, but certainly in this country and a couple other foreign countries. So yes.
Wonderful. Well, tell us how long you have been doing numerology, and then let's just tell us a little bit about what the heck it is.
Sure. I'll take your second question first.
Sure.
Numerology is really the study and the science of numbers. It was a system that was developed by Pythagoras in 530 BCE. We're mostly familiar with Pythagoras as he's the one that came up with the Pythagorean theorem. Say that fast 3 times. But he, in addition to being a mathematician, he was also a musician. And so he and his students studied musical notes, and they determined that there is a with every number that is out there, basically 1 to 9, because 0 really isn't a number, but I will get into that in a little bit, that they each had a certain vibration and a certain energy. And so when you put these different numbers together, that is what makes a symphony. It's the same thing with us in numerology. Numerology is based on, there's 6 numbers in your numerology chart. 3 are based on your name. And the other 3, which are the stronger of the 3 of the 6, is based on your birth date. So how I got into it is back in 2004. So this year marks 20 years that I've been doing this. And my son was born in 2004, and I had a considerable amount of time off. And so I was listening to podcasts by the Hay House. If you all are familiar with Louise Hay, who was like the godmother of New Age. And so I was listening to a podcast, and there was a numerologist on there named Glynis McCants. And she started talking about numbers, and I was just fascinated with what she was talking about. I'm a New Ager. I love astrology, and so it deeply resonated with me. So I'm a learner, and I bought all the books I could on numerology. I studied it, and then I just started asking my friends, hey, can I read you? Can I give me your birthday and let me see what I can find out about you? And it just took off right away. And my friends were delighted. They loved the information. They started sharing it with their friends, and then their friends and their friends. Really, I've just grown by word of mouth. And it was really just from that one podcast. I was a journalism major. I never really liked numbers, but numerology isn't the same. It's the same as math, but it's also a little different.
Well, clearly I'm not a math gal either, with Amy's birth year wrong for the 3rd time. Sorry about it. And thank you, Tina, so much for your time in redoing that chart because of me. So I apologize in advance.
Would you call yourself a numerologist, or if you had to classify what you do, what would you call yourself?
Yeah, I would call myself a numerologist because numbers don't lie. I just know how to read the numbers really well. So numerology is a scientific process. It's not a psychic process. So people get all weird that I know this is bewitched banter, but people get all weird that it's about the occult. And some people might think it is, but it's really just the science of understanding the energy of numbers. Anybody can be a numerologist. You can go online right now and look up all kinds of numerology. But because I've been doing this for 20 years, I also understand some of the stories behind the numbers. And when I get to meet people and read them, and I start understanding more about their lives, then they start seeing how numbers play a significant part in their lives.
I don't know how you feel about angel numbers, as it may or may not relate to numerology, but I've seen 1111 or 111 every day, if not twice a day, for the last 4 years, ever since my divorce. And Amy thinks it's all BS, that it's coincidence. And sure, I think there is a big part of it. But can you talk about that a little bit?
1111 twice a day. If you see 1111 or even 111, but 1111 is very powerful because I'll get into the energy of the numbers in just a little bit. But 1 is the number of being first. It signifies being first. It signifies importance. And so when you see 4 1s lined up in a row, it's it's an invitation or a message from the universe for that 1 minute for you to be still and to affirm what is something that you want in your life, because the universe is signaling you with that 1111. Tell us what you want. Tell us what you want to create. And it's a way of just affirming, okay, this is what I want. The universe is saying, take action on what you want, because one is about action. And
Mhm.
111, it's also the same thing, but 1111 is a very powerful number. On November 11th, which happens to be,
Veterans Day?
yes, I was
Yeah.
gonna, yeah, Veterans Day. Every year on 11/11, I sit down and I write in my journal, and I write what are the things that I want to manifest in this next year. And then I look back on my journal the year before and say, what did I manifest between that 11/11 and this 11/11? It's a very, very powerful combination. And when you see it, take a moment just to make a wish or send somebody you love a special blessing. It's very powerful.
So
Love that.
my thing with
Yeah.
Krista with the 1111, I keep telling her it's pattern recognition. She's seeing 1111 because it's pattern recognition, that she's noticed this trend that she keeps seeing this number. So it's almost like her brain's looking for this and it notices the pattern. That's why I give her a hard time. So I think it's pattern recognition when she's seeing these numbers.
From where I stand, I think
Mhm.
it can be a little bit of both, but I also think if you're doing your own thing and all of a sudden you look at the clock and it's 11:11,
Mhm.
I think that's the universe giving you a message. There she could notice that there's
Yeah.
11:11. I agree with that. But to make you feel better, Krista, I would say the past month or so, I have been seeing 11:11. Even today, I look down and then I look and it's 11:11. And again, Amy, it's part of that is even with numerology, which I can
Mhm.
get into, is that everybody has a different belief system, and
Yeah.
what you believe might not be what somebody else believes. And the best, what I've always done is I appreciate there are people that are really religious. I am spiritual, I am not
Mhm.
religious, but I respect other people for their beliefs and we just move on.
Oh, definitely. I'm the same
Yeah.
way. It's all about a little bit having fun with each other, but also it's
Yeah.
that's like the whole part of the show, us debating it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Be
Yeah,
wit,
and it's honestly,
debate,
it's been
banter.
Yeah.
yeah, honestly, and Amy's done a really great job of making, and I said this last or 2 episodes ago, I am open to learning about the atheism and, like, that belief system. I'm open to it, but right now, there's something in my spirit, my soul that doesn't allow me to let go of my spiritualism
Right.
beliefs just yet. And but what I was trying to get at is Amy over the last 2.5 years has really done a good job of making me be a little bit more skeptical. Because as and I'm sure you've got from my chart, I'm a very open-hearted person that can cause a lot of unnecessary drama or stress for me because I'm letting others' energies impact me instead of putting me,
Mhm.
number 1, 11, 11 first. Anyway, she's done a really good job at that, but she's, for the most part, pretty respectful.
For the most part, yes.
Really, I came into a full awareness of my spiritual journey when I was 32, right after 9/11.
Yeah.
That's when I really, and what I've learned is that people believe what they want to believe, and we have to just respect others' beliefs. But I have met people that they're so cynical that they have 2 feet planted in this reality, and it's nope, don't believe any of it. And then you have some on the other side that are so woo and spiritual that it's like, you need to come back down to earth, because I don't know what spaceship you fell out of, but we are trying to live a decent life here on earth. So the balance is having 1 foot on this side and 1 foot on that side. And I think that's what's so great about your podcast is because there are cynics, or there are people that just question those things. And so I think that's a healthy debate.
Because I feel like with religion, any religion or any belief, if you're too extreme of anything, that's when you get in that dangerous territory. But
Yeah.
going back to a little bit more about when you said you had this spiritual awakening, if this isn't too of an invasive question, was there something that happened that caused you to, apart from like listening to the podcast, were you searching for something?
No, what happened was 9/11. I was 31 at the time. I will note that, Amy, you graduated or you were born in 1988.
No.
I was graduating from high school. Your listeners and viewers can figure out what my age is from that. But I was 31 and 9/11 happened. And at that time, everybody was just, what do we do? At that point, I had a 3-year-old who's now 26 or whatever. So there was a seminar that came up. I was in a professional PR communicators group, and it said there's the life coach, and are you struggling with what happened with 9/11? And I was like, I am. I was trying to make sense of all of it. And so I attended, it was a personal coach, and I attended her seminar, and she had 4 words on a flip chart that said, "What is your passion?" And I thought it was writing because I'd been in public relations and marketing. That's what my career was in and still is. But I really started asking myself those tough questions. Is writing my passion? Is my family my passion? And I couldn't answer that question. And so I just started going on this journey of listening. And I actually hired that woman. She was a coach of mine for several years, and she gave me a list of books. And one of them was Cheryl Richardson's You Can Heal. No, it was Take Control of Your Life. I think it was something like that. Cheryl Richardson is also a coach. I read her books, and then that led me to another author, and then another author, and then
Mhm.
somehow, and then that led me to Hay House. And then that's when I heard that podcast on numerology. It was just 9/11 dramatically changed my life. And a lot of people don't come into a full awareness of their spirituality until they're in midlife, because then they start looking back and going, what was my life about? What was all
Mhm.
these things about? So I came into mine a little bit earlier, and I've been on that journey ever since. People change for one of two reasons, either for desperation or inspiration.
Mhm.
And for me, I was really inspired to make a change in my life and to say, there's got to be more to my life than this. There's got to be more. And I love my boys, don't get me wrong, but I just knew that there was something else out there for me to learn. And then when numerology came along, I was like, wow, this is a really good fit because I can now help other people understand by the power of numbers how to live their lives.
Super cool. We
Yeah,
kind of touched on it. I'm stealing this question from you, Ames, but what are one or several things you've learned about human nature or others by doing this for so long and for so many folks?
sure. First and foremost, I've learned that people will pay me to tell them about themselves. Okay. Yeah. But I also think that for me, I read on the positive side of the numbers. But just like you can have $40 or $4 in your bank account, you can also be negative $4 in your bank account. For me, for the majority of people do want to hear about how their lives can be changed in a positive manner with
Mhm.
numerology. But again, there are some naysayers. And sometimes, even though I read on the positive side of the numbers, there's also a negative side of those numbers, and I usually don't focus on that because I don't wanna tell people, "Here's all the bad things," but I do throw
Yeah.
things in to say, "Here's some things you should watch out for," which I will definitely share with both of you. And
Yeah.
another thing I've learned, numbers don't lie. Like I said, this is not a psychic process, it's a
Yeah.
scientific process that's been around, again,
Mhm.
since 530 BCE, and so I
Mhm.
just know how to interpret the numbers really well. And then I wrote this down too. Once you know what your numbers are, or really what you know, once you know what your life path number is, which is the most important number in your chart, you can see how that number winds itself around in your life and how you can use that number to your advantage.
Can you
Yeah.
explain a life number?
I can, if the life path number, because I will have it in your
Oh,
reading
okay.
too, both of your readings. But just a little quick summary. The life path number is, as I said, there's 6 numbers in a chart. Your life path number is your most important number because that is like your life purpose. That's everything wrapped, your soul's urge, your birthday, your destiny number, all that is wrapped up into your life path. And so again, it's out of those 6 numbers, it's the most important number in your chart. And then as I do your readings, I'll show you how that number relates to other numbers like it in your life. And you may be surprised to be like, huh, I've always liked this number. I didn't know why. I really believe in looking at superstars and their lives. And, with Taylor
Mm.
Swift, she was born on the 13th, which with numerology, you keep adding one number, the numbers till you get one. So 1 plus 3 is actually 4. And Taylor has got some 4s in her chart. And so it's just interesting. People will tell me all the time, my favorite number is an 8. Why is that? And sometimes it's in their chart, and sometimes it's just the energy of that number that
Hmm.
people resonate with.
It sounds like you have done 35,000 readings, right? You've met a lot of
Uh,
people, right?
Oh, sorry, 3,500, right?
3,500, okay.
Once again, math not my thing.
I would say probably closer to 3,000, but yeah, I would say 2,500 to 3,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
But by doing that, I'm sure you've learned a lot about people through numerology, right? Can you tell us a little
Mhm.
bit what you've learned about people from doing these readings?
Yeah, I would say that some people are skeptical at the beginning, and when I start sharing the numbers, it really does open people up to say, "Oh wow, I really get it now. Now I understand it. Even if it's just one thing that they're like, yeah, I agree with that. But when I do I do numerology reports. And so one of the things that I do in there is I will say, in some of the reports, people can ask me 3 questions based on their
Mhm.
numerology report. And when I found there's usually 4 categories that people ask about: money, relationships, work, or health. And so I think that's a universal theme across everybody and almost every reading I've done. It's one of those 4 areas
Mhm.
that people really want to know more about how the numbers relate to that issue in their lives. I love that question because it really made me think about it. I know astrology to the point I'm very familiar with all the signs, what the negatives are and the positives are. I do see some relevance, even though they're really 2 separate sets of data, if you will, where numerology focuses on the name, the letters in your name and your birth date, where astrology kind of is similar, that it does focus a little bit on your birth date, but then astrology goes off into tangents like your rising and your ascendant, your descendant, all these other things that numerology doesn't really go into. But I can see with sometimes with the astrological signs, I do see that it does dovetail into people's numbers. But like with everything else, it just depends. It just depends. Because you also
Yes.
have astrology is one, and numerology, and there's other things, divination, and all these things where and it depends on people's life experiences. There's a lot of
Mhm.
things that go into it, and so numerology is really just one aspect of your life.
Krista and I've had long discussions about tarot reading, for example. And I like, so I'm not spiritual. So I can see it being used as like a tool for reflection more, or like a guide, but I don't really believe in it spiritually. So, how would you, I guess, for the naysayers out there, what would you say about numerology to them?
Well, I'm a big believer of the law of attraction. I've been studying Esther Hicks and Abraham for close to 25 years. And so I really believe that if people are interested in numerology, they will be attracted to it. The law of attraction says that which is like itself will attract. And so for
Mhm.
me, it's okay, people that really want this information, they're attracted to it. And those that don't want it, they're not attracted to it. Numerology might not work for everybody. It's just one more thing to help uncover about yourself. But if it's not of an interest to you, then it's not of an interest to you at this time. Like Krista just said a little while ago, at this point in time, this is what I believe in. But things change. People might be like, I'm not interested in this right now. And then something happens and they're like, oh, well, maybe I should give this numerology a try. Again, it's just, if people are attracted to it, great. If they think it's not, it doesn't have any relevance to them, that's okay. It just means that numerology is not for them. But I will tell you, everybody has numbers. Everybody has numbers. The numbers don't lie. And Amy, when I get to you, I'm going to tell you why you are a skeptic.
There's people who have never stumbled upon numerology, or it's something they have no idea what it is. How would you, I guess, your 30-second elevator pitch, what is it? If you had to tell someone in passing, what is numerology?
Yeah. Numerology is the scientific study of numbers, and it's a way to understand the vibrations and certain patterns based on your name and your birthday.
Okay. That's a great
Yeah.
way to summarize it.
Absolutely. And I also still love the scientific mathematical aspect too with Pythagoras. Back in the day, we covered numerology not nearly as well and beautifully as you are for us right now. But I was into it because of another podcast I listened to, totally a fictional podcast, but it was called Tanis. I'll send it to you, Tina. You'll love it. But it really covers a fictional story of a journalist producer that stumbles upon this weird Reddit feed called Discovering Tanis. And it's this
Hmm.
weird mythological place, may or may not be Atlantis, a lot of debates about it. But a huge segment of season 1 is all about Pythagorean theorem and how these mathematicians were also equally very spiritual and philosophers. They blended both so beautifully. So for me, that's a point back to non-believers or skeptics. So saying, well, these men are brilliant, based in mathematical sciences. I think there's something to that to be said. So that said, that probably pulls on my next question of have you ever been chided publicly or maybe not for your beliefs? Because it took me a little while to come out of my spiritual closet, if you will. There was an incident when I was not very nice to Amy's husband when I was reading tarot on one of our camping trips because I was triggered, offended. Now I apologize several times over for reacting in the way that I did. But I guess, how do you react to that? Or have you ever come across that type of rating of your spiritual belief systems?
Yeah, I will say first and foremost, everybody is on their own journey, whether they are conscious of it or not. And everybody, we have free will. And so people can choose what they like to believe or not to believe. And if you have somebody who is a skeptic or a non-believer and you're trying to show them how you live your life and that if you just become a new ager, your life is going to change. Some people, it doesn't resonate with people.
Yeah.
And so I have learned it's not earlier on. I think I did run into some skeptics. I did have one guy at one of my previous jobs and I used to tell everybody about numerology. And then I learned that some people didn't get it. They thought it was weird. It turned them off. And so I learned to be very careful about who I talk to about, because again, there is a perception there that it's about the occult and it's about witchcraft and all that. But it's numbers. It's scientific. It has nothing to do with that. But I was working with a guy and he said, "What do you do for fun?" And I said, "Well, I'm a numerologist." And, "Oh, so you're a heathen." And I was like, "No, I would much rather be called a harlot than a heathen," but whatever. But I was like, and that really stuck with me because I'm like, I'm just studying numbers and I'm just trying to help people understand more about themselves. But we are all on our own paths. And so to shove your beliefs down somebody's throat is not going to go well if they're not open to it. It's the same thing, Krista. And Amy, I don't know if you're religious, spiritual, or none of the above, but what if Amy came to you and said, you need to have Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?
The people that come to my door, please get out. I'm a witch. Bye. Thank you.
And so that's what I'm saying is you don't want people imposing their beliefs on you or their judgments. They're living their lives. And similarly, you don't want people doing that to you.
Absolutely.
And so, like I said, numerology isn't for everyone, but whether people realize it or not, numbers are in their lives. The numbers don't lie. But again, it takes all kinds. I do think everybody's on their own journey. And if they're interested and attracted to it, let me back up and say, most of my best friends that I surround myself with, they all have a spiritual aspect. They all are new agers or they all believe in certain things. So I've attracted those people into my life. Krista, I know you're so passionate about this. You attract people into your life that will be similar to you. And I think it's beautiful, this relationship you have with Amy, because I think Amy can also help ground you to say, no, Krista, don't put both feet over in woo-woo land. Let's talk about being balanced.
I've done that before.
She has. And again, she's done a wonderful job of making me become more centrist in my spiritual side the last 2.5 years.
Know your audience when you're talking about your beliefs, because if you're in a mixed crowd, it's like they say, you don't talk about religion, politics, abortion, and spirituality because you just don't know.
Knowing your audience is half the trick to doing well in life in general. Just like being able to reading the room or reading the person you're talking to. I guess emotional intelligence, basically, at the end of the day.
If you all are familiar, or at least Krista, if you're familiar with the work of Michael Singer, he wrote The Untethered Soul and The Surrender Experiment. Oh, if you all have not read The Untethered Soul, he was on Oprah and all that, and he's a guru. My best friend Jill studied with him in Florida. But his saying is, people are not okay. And most people are lashing out in anger or doing these other things because they're not okay with themselves. And they're lashing out at other people when they really should be just minding their own P's and Q's and trying to work on themselves. But yeah, that's one of Jill's favorite sayings is people are not okay.
Well, with that, I would love to know more about the numbers not lying. Amy, I think you're up first. Oh, time out real quick. Let's throw a plug in here real quick. Mid-plug. Tell us where folks can get readings with you or how to connect with you if they're interested.
Oh, I appreciate that. So I don't have a website. Like I said, all of my business has been word of mouth, but I do have an email, numbersbytina@gmail.com. And if your viewers or your listeners want to send me an email, I can give them more information. So I typically do a couple different charts. One of the charts I do is I'll do the full 6 numbers, and then I will do a month by month because we will get into your personal years. So I will give you a summary of your personal year and a summary of your month by month. And then I will usually have people send me in 3 questions and I answer those by the numbers. Usually I charge 125 for that. But for your listeners and your viewers, if they email me at numbersbytina@gmail.com, I will be happy to give them $25 off. And for $100, I can do that. Now, for an extra 25, what I do is with the numbers, there are certain people that you might not get along with and you don't know why. And there are numbers, just like people, that are toxic to you, or they're numbers that are compatible to you. And I have done probably close to 500, maybe 400 readings for couples or friends or business associates to say, why can't I get along with this person or whatever? Or, and a lot of people, which is interesting, I've had couples that I'll do readings for, and it shows that they've got some challenges in their relationships. And again, so for that, I can do a relationship reading for an extra of 25. I usually charge 150 for all of that. But for your viewers and your listeners, I would do 100 for the month by month, the year, and 3 questions. And then if they want to add the relationship part of it, it would be 125. One woman I worked with, one of my previous clients, she was determining if she should keep her name or not when she married her husband.
Oh, wow.
And one of the things I didn't touch on yet is that every letter has a numerical component. A is 1, B is 2,
Okay.
C is
Got it.
3, D is 4, and it goes down, down. And when women get married,
Mhm.
they change their name. And so when they do that, they are changing 3 of the numbers in their chart because their letters are changing. And men will say, when I married her, she changed. I wanted her just like she was. Of course she changed because she took on your name. And so that vibrational component, those vibrations changed to those name numbers. And then women say, he never changes. He never changed. Yeah. Because his name didn't change when you guys got
Typical.
married.
The men didn't have to do a goddamn thing.
I-
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm married, but I never changed my name. My last name means so much to me. I was like, I'm going to keep my last name. And I also promised my granddad. I was like 8 years old. I didn't even know I was promising him, but it's all the Holtz were girls. And he made me promise I would keep my last name. How long are the readings typically when someone schedules an appointment with you?
But usually I do reports. And there are some numerologists out there that will charge 250, 350 for this stuff. But I would say to your viewers and your listeners, if you go onto any of these numerology sites and people are charging 250, 300, and you put your information in and you get it back right away, it's not personalized. They're just generating stuff. Whereas for me, I do a report. Usually they're about 15, 16 pages. And so then personally, I am intuitive. At least I get my intuition. I'm sure you've talked about this on the show, but there's
Mhm.
four
She doesn't
four
believe in
methods of
intuition.
intuition. Okay, I'm clairaudient, so I hear. And so I bring my intuition into the reports, which these other people that are charging 250 or 350, all they're trying to do is amass a bunch of people paying where they can't possibly sit down one-on-one with people and understand that. And so that's why I get the numbers, I get their birthday and their name and their questions. And then I work on the reports personally. And so it takes me about 2 weeks for each report because I put a lot into it to make it more personal for people.
Mhm.
And so that's a difference with what I do versus what some of these other people do. And that's why I've been told over the years, I've been in PR and marketing for 30 years or so. I'm like, do you have a website? And I always think I'm going to start one, but honestly, I've had so much great business by word of mouth. I've done parties, I've done bachelorette parties, I've done
Divorce
pool
parties.
parties,
Boring.
divorce parties. I've done them all. And some of those, I'll do those in person. But I find that people, especially a lot of my repeat clients every year, that I usually do a new report for them at the beginning of every year, they keep those reports year after year. And then they refer back to them and say, oh, in April of 2023, you told me that I might find somebody. And sure enough, I found somebody. So, and again, even though I say numerology is not a psychic process, the numbers do tell you what energetic vibrational pattern you are in. And I will share that in a minute. So,
Great.
Awesome.
Just one more question so I can understand. So when
sure.
you're doing this, are you sending the report and then you allow the person to digest it by themselves, or are they meeting with you and you're walking through the report?
Great question. I have found that most people just like their report. I offer to say, if you would like to talk on the phone after you read it or have any questions, let me know. But it's really rare that people do that. And I've got a lot of compliments from people, or not compliments, but feedback like you were spot on. And I get messages from clients that I might have done their report 4 years ago. And they're like, what you said in that report really helped me and it changed things in my life. Again, ladies, it's not me, it's the numbers. It's not me telling them they're psychic. It's I can read the vibrational patterns so I know to tell people what to expect.
Amazing.
Very cool.
I
Yeah.
love it. Well, that's a wrap for part 1 of Numerology with Tina. Head on over to part 2 to hear our readings. Thank you again so much, Tina, for your time and expertise. We can't wait to see you on the other side of part 2 and hear what you've got in store for me and Amy's numerology readings.